Man, Mountain Dew Code Red, man, I'm telling you, this brings back some childhood memories for real. I remember when this first came out, I was like, damn, this is yummy as a mother. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Addiction TV. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. We have made it. We have made it to my review for Scream 4. You know what I'm saying? I know when I did the Scream 3 review, I was a little harsh on the movie. You know what I'm saying? I ripped it a new asshole. I wasn't being very nice, you know. But, I'm sorry, Scream 3, it sucked. And now we're on to Scream 4. So tonight, Scream 2022 comes out. You know I will be there. And my review, spoiler free, will be coming later tonight. And then tomorrow, I'm going to re-rank the franchise. I'll rank the killers. I'll rank the characters, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a Scream week again. Before we get into the video, if you haven't already, go down, grab the like button, hit the subscribe button. That would be dope as hell. And I do want to say, I like Scream 4. I don't love Scream 4, but I do like it. And I don't know what it is about the movie. There's just something that is a little bit off for me in Scream. And I don't know why, because the cast is great. Emma Roberts, she killed it. Hayden Panittiere, of course, we got Neve, Courtney, and David back as well. But in the movie, it was definitely way more brutal than Scream 3 was. But I think maybe it's the cinematography on the film, or the way it was lit. Like, the film has this weird lit up, like, happy feel to it. I don't know, it feels weird to me. But I do like Scream 4. Scream 4, good movie. There's just something a tad bit off about it. And so we start off with, of course, the Dimension Films logo, a phone ringing. Girl answers the phone. I'm going to say the opening to Scream 4, the first time I seen it, it had me pissed, okay? You got two girls sitting there talking about watching a movie and what they want to watch. I think they say Saw 4 or something like that. And Trudy is over there talking to Lucy Hale like, oh, I saw that in theaters, it sucks. And Ghostface calls them a couple times, harassing them. And, you know, this is 11. This is 2011, so, you know, there's texting, there's Facebook, and Trudy has a Facebook stalker who's using Channing Tatum's pictures on his profile. She calls him Stalker Boy. And she's like, he's really hot. And her roommate, or friend, or whatever, she's like, that's Channing Tatum. And I thought it was funny the way they opened this movie. But anyways, Ghostface calls. They hang up on him. Now they're scared. And he starts texting Trudy. And Trudy's freaking out. And Lucy Hale's just kind of like, it's a prank. Don't worry about it. It could be anybody. Doorbell rings. Lucy Hale opens the front door, okay? There's nobody there, obviously. Trudy is still getting texts from the killer. She's like, it's Stalker Boy. So she opens the text and it says, I'm not outside. I'm right next to you. And then Ghostface just jumps in, stabs Trudy in the chest in a very goofy way. And Lucy Hale starts to run out the front door, and another Ghostface pops up, slashes her throat, and she dies in a very dramatic and goofy, cheesy acting way. And when I was in the theater with my friends, I was sitting there watching it, and I'm like, dude, they did not just open up Scream 4 like that. Are you kidding me? That is so cheesy. They've really lost it. Lucky for me, it was a fake out, and it was Stab 6. I was a little upset at first. I thought this was literally the opening for Scream 4. So we cut to Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin, and they were watching Stab 6, and they're sitting there. They're like, that was so stupid. The death of horror right here in front of us, and they're arguing back and forth about, you know, the slasher genre and the horror genre. how it's dying and how they keep recycling the same shit. And Kristen Bell pulls this big kitchen knife out and stabs Anna Paquin in the stomach. Excuse me. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell? And everybody else in the theater, it was funny hearing their reaction. And she's like, why? Anna Paquin's like, why? And Kristen Bell's like, because you talk too much, and stabs her again. There we have it. Another stab movie. Stab 7. So now we cut to a girl named Jenny Randall and her friend Marnie. They were watching Stab 7. Now we're with the actual characters of Scream 4 and we're into the actual movie now. Okay? I know. But anyways, okay, they're sitting there talking about the Stab movies and, you know, how they're based on Woodsboro, and at least Woodsboro is known for something. And Jenny likes to mess with Marnie, okay? She's got an app on her phone that can turn her voice into the Ghostface voice. So she goes upstairs pretending she heard something, or she left the window open or something. She goes upstairs and she calls Marnie in the Ghostface voice, and she's messing with Marnie. And Marnie is like, you bitch. La da da da. And while Jenny's on the phone with Marnie, she hears Marnie getting attacked. And you hear like choking sounds and stuff like that. So Jenny goes downstairs. She can't find Marnie, lights are out, you know, phone's laying on the floor. Phone rings, and it's the real Ghostface, the real killer, talking to Jenny. And I kind of like the shit they say back and forth to each other. And she's over there talking to Ghostface, and he says some funny shit to her like, you're the dumb blonde with the huge tits, we'll have some fun with you before you die. And she's like, talking about how high her IQ is and la da da da, and she's like, what have you done with Marnie? And he's like, she's on the cutting room floor. And Jenny's like, that's not funny. He's like, it isn't a comedy, it's a horror film. People live, people die, and you better start running. And throws Marnie through the glass door. I'm like, oh shit, hell yeah, Ghostface is back. Here we go. So Ghostface chases Jenny all throughout the house. And he catches up to her, stabs her in the back, pushes her down the stairs that lead to the garage. We all know where this is going. Call back to the original Scream. And she tries to crawl out the garage door. Ghostface hits the button to make the garage close, and it lands on her back and crushes her spine. And he walks over to her, flips her over, raises his knife, stabs her, and then Scream 4. Title card drops. And I'm like, okay, alright, let's go. So now we catch up with Sidney Prescott. And it's been 10 years since the events of Scream 3. And she wrote a book called Out of Darkness. You know, talking about her life, talking about how to escape a life like that. And she returns to Woodsboro for a book signing. And we catch up with Gail and Dewey as well, who's been married for 10 years. And living in a small town, living a small town life. It's really getting to Gail. You know, there's not much to write about, you know what I'm saying? And we meet Sidney's cousin, Jill, played by Emma Roberts. And we meet her friends, Kirby and Olivia. And we find out Jill doesn't know Sidney very well. Her mother, Jill's mother, is Sidney's mother's sister. So Sidney will be staying with them while she's in town. So while Sidney's, you know, promoting her book, you know, shit goes bad, and Dewey comes in and he has to shut down the book reading because they're tracing the phone from the Jenny and Marnie murders, and it's in Sidney's trunk, in the trunk of Sidney's rental. Okay, so now Sidney has no choice but to stay in town, and the killer does call Jill and Kirby and Olivia while they're on their way to school, and they let the police know that someone called them from the victims' phones. And we also meet Deputy Judy Hicks, which I really like her. Gail can't stand her, and she's got this huge crush on Dewey, and it's pretty damn funny. She's always making Dewey little treats like lemon squares and shit like that. And we also meet Hawson Perkins and Anthony Anderson. He plays one of those roles. I like Anthony Anderson. He could be a funny motherfucker. But now we cut to being at Jill's house, and Sydney goes up there to tell Jill goodnight or something like that. And Jill's ex-boyfriend, what was his name? Trevor, climbs through her window, kind of like Billy does, and I think it kind of gives Sydney like a flashback and shit, and she's uncomfortable. And we also meet a couple other characters, Charlie and Robbie, who are horror movie fanatics. Kirby's a horror movie fanatic too, and he wants to sleep with Kirby. Obviously, she's hot, but yeah, they run this group in the high school called Cinema Club. That ties in later on. But anyways, this Ghostface calls Jill and Kirby while they're watching Shaun of the Dead, and they're also on the phone with their friend Olivia, whose bedroom they can see across the way. And Ghostface is like, I'm standing in the closet. And they're like, no you're not, and la da da da. So they open their closet, he's not in there. And he's like, I never said I was in your closet. And this leads up to one of the most brutal kills in the movie. And not just the movie, the franchise itself. Ghostface pops out of Olivia's closet. He stabs her in the hand. He's kicking her ass, bro. I ain't gonna lie. He kicks her ass. He stabs her multiple times on the bed, and he guts her. After pushing her face through the window for Jill and Kirby to see, Ghostface guts Olivia. Sydney hears all the commotion and she runs over to Olivia's house. And the scene she finds when she looks in Olivia's room, oh my goodness, bro. Very, very gory. And intestines laying on the bed like, damn. By the way, Gail and Dewey, they're having problems in this movie. Gail wants to help Dewey with the investigation, and he won't let her. He's like, I'm the sheriff, you know, this is my job. So they're having little debates and issues. So she's like, I'll just have to do this on my own. And so she goes to Charlie and Robbie. And her and Sydney go to Cinema Club to get their help on catching the killer. So Gail and Sydney end up going to Cinema Club at the high school. And Charlie and Robbie are talking about the rules. The new rules, you know what I'm saying? How they're dealing with like a real life reboot or a Scream make. Because all there are remakes nowadays. And they let Gail and Sydney know, like, where's all this lead up to? And they're like, a party. And they have a party every year called Stabathon, where they watch all the stab movies back to back. And they drink, they get fucked up, you know what I mean? And they won't give Gail the location, so Gail, you know Gail, she can be a bitch. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Rebecca, Sydney's agent, publicist, whatever. And she's a bitch too, and there's a funny exchange between her and Gail earlier in the movie, and yeah, Rebecca gets killed too. After Olivia gets killed and Sydney gets attacked, Ghostface kills Rebecca in the parking garage at the hospital. They end up having the Stabathon party, and Gail ends up finding out the location, and she goes and sets cameras up at the Stabathon. And she realizes someone is messing with her cameras, because she's got monitors in her car where she's watching all the footage. And someone's like covering her cameras and putting cups in front of them and stuff. And you see Ghostface look into the camera. So she goes in to the barn where the Stabathon is to fix her equipment. While she's doing that, Ghostface attacks her, and Dewey shows up. He could see it all on the monitors in her car. And Ghostface, he's giving Gail a run for her money, but ends up stabbing Gail in the shoulder. And I'm like, oh no, they're gonna kill Gale. But you already know how these things go. They get messed up, but they don't die. You know what? The killer's never superhuman. I think Gale, Dewey, and Sydney are superhuman. So now we go back to Kirby's house, because the Stabathon, it was ruined. So, Jill, Kirby, Robbie, Charlie, and Trevor are all back at Kirby's house. And, Charlie really wants to get up in some Kirby, you know what I'm saying? He wants to get his tip wet. And they're all getting drunk. Robbie's walking around, and it leads to one of my favorite kills in the movie. Is Charlie, or no, it's Robbie. Yeah, it's Robbie gets killed by Ghostface, stabbed right in the chest. Okay. So while all this is going on, and that lets you know, like, well, before this happens, or during this, I can't remember, during this time period, Sydney and Jill's mom are attacked by Ghostface. And Ghostface ends up killing Jill's mom. And it's like, damn. Excuse me. But, so, who else died in that scene? Okay, Robbie got killed by Ghostface. Trevor's nowhere to be found. That's very suspicious. Sydney finds out Jill snuck out and she's over at Kirby's. So Sydney heads over to Kirby's to let her know the killer's coming for her and the killer got her mom. And while they're doing that, Robbie walks up and dies right in front of him, and Ghostface runs in and chases Jill and Sydney up the steps. And Jill gets under the bed. Sydney climbs out a window onto the roof. Ghostface follows her out onto the roof. And Sydney falls off the roof and she's okay. And her and Kirby are like down in this basement where there's a big glass door. And Charlie's out there, and he's got blood on his hands, and he's bleeding and stuff, and he's like, let me in, Kirby. And Kirby's all like, get away from the door, Charlie. And Ghostface pops up behind Charlie and starts beating his head against the door. And then lights go out. Lights turn on. And now we got Charlie taped to a chair like Steve was in the first Scream movie. So Sydney leaves the basement to go and find Jill. And Ghostface calls Kirby, and he's asking her all these questions so Charlie can survive. You know, he's like, let's play a little game. He's like, okay, what's Jason's weapon? And she's like, it's a machete. He's like, Michael Myers, you know, kitchen knife, Freddy Krueger, razor hands. And he's like, name the movie that started the slasher craze. And she's like, Psycho. And he's like, none of the above. Peepin' Tom, some 19 something, you know, whatever. And then he's like, name the remake of the groundbreaking horror film in which the villain, and she cuts him off and starts naming like all the fucking horror remakes that there's ever been. So she thinks she got it right, because Ghostface doesn't say anything else on the phone, and Charlie's looking poor, pitiful me tied up in the chair outside. So she opens the door to go untie Charlie, and Charlie pulls a knife out and stabs her. And it's kind of a funny scene. I ain't gonna tell you all the lines. I don't remember the lines exactly, but you'll see. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So there's one killer revealed, Charlie. So Sydney's walking around the house, and Charlie comes up behind her and grabs her. She slams Charlie against the wall. She goes to run out the front door. Ghostface runs in, stabs Sydney, and Ghostface is revealed. And it's her cousin Jill. Jill is the killer. Her and Charlie are the killers in this one. And her reason for being the killer, she wants to be famous. You know what I mean? She wants to be the new Sydney. She wants to be a victim. She's seeking that fame. She's hungry for it. And she's jealous of Sydney. And she, you know, she's like, it's always Sydney this and Sydney that. And, you know, she's like, I'm not gonna go to college. I'm not gonna get a job. You just gotta have fucked up shit happen to you. I'm like, damn, this bitch is crazy. And Emma Roberts, she did a good job in this movie. She killed it. You know what I'm saying? She did a good job playing this innocent small town girl, and then she's freaking psychotic. So they pulled Trevor out of the closet. He's all taped up, and they're gonna frame him. And she looks at Trevor and she says, "I'm not the girl you cheat on." Shoots him right in the dick. I remember the theater all gasping and everyone. I was laughing my ass off and everyone in the theater was freaking out. I'm sure my homies were laughing with me. So we get another Billy and Stu moment where Jill and Charlie are supposed to stab each other so they look like victims. And they made it through. Well, Jill stabs Charlie in the heart. And she's like, "Sorry, there should only be one star," or something like that. So Charlie dies. She's still running her mouth to Sydney. She stabs Sydney in the stomach. Sydney passes out. So now the crazy bitch, she's running around the living room, running into pictures on the wall. She is jumping on tables, making herself look beat up. She takes her ex's fingernails and scrapes her face, rips her hair out, leaves it in his hand, leaves the knife, the cop gun over there, and it's like, oh man. But so dramatic. She lays down next to Sydney in the same exact position. Finally the police show up, and then we cut to Jill in the hospital and Dewey standing by her bedside. And Gail, she's okay. And Jill's talking about writing a book, and maybe Gail and her could write it together with their matching wounds. And Jill finds out that Sydney might just make it. So this crazy bitch starts taking everything off that's helping her, keeping her alive and all this and that shit. And she's going to find Sydney's room, and Dewey goes back to Gail's room, and he's like, "She said you guys could write a book together with your matching wounds." And Gail's like, "She was stabbed in the shoulder too?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "How'd she know I was?" And Dewey's like, "Oh shit," and rushes out of the room to go to Sydney's room. Jill is in there fucking Sydney up. And I'm just like, damn, man. And Dewey comes in, gets the hell beat out of him with like a toilet seat or some shit. And Deputy Hicks and Gail come in, and Deputy Hicks gets shot. And Gail's got Jill distracted, so finally Sydney comes up from behind Jill, shocks her. She falls to her, well, she doesn't die, but she falls to the ground. And, you know, they're all talking, everybody's happy, and then finally Jill gets up, gets a broken piece of glass to stab Sydney, and Sydney turns around and shoots her. She dies. So the movie ends with news reporters talking about Jill being a real life hero. So that is my review for Scream 4. I know I didn't touch on every little single detail, but you guys get the gist of it. If you've seen it, you already know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, hey, spoiler as hell, you know what I mean? But nah, man, it was fun reviewing all 4 of the Scream movies, because y'all know how much this franchise means to me. Leading up until tonight, when I finally get to gaze upon Scream 2022. I'm excited as hell. And I don't really know much about it. I think this, they've done a real good job about not letting leaks get out. Like, I like the way this movie was marketed. Halloween Kills should have been the same way, but you know, shit happens. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, guys, coming at you from Addiction TV.